I've currently got stuck in my head.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. I bet you're thinking, podcast? What the hell is going on here? Well, yeah, we're branding out and don't worry, I'll still be doing the normal videos where you can laugh at my stupid face and all that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, I'm joined by a very special guest who goes by the name of AD. How are you?
It's Glenn, I'll have you know.
Glenn? Well, for the record, for anyone that's listening out there, yeah, that was scripted, but now nothing is scripted. There is no script. There's never been a script. So, this episode, we are going to be talking about what movie?
The Multiverse of Madness. Doctor Strange 2. Do you need the full title? It's not.
Give me the full title.
Yeah, it's not that way around. It's Doctor Strange 2 in the Multiverse of Madness. I don't know if there's an in, but there probably should be.
I was just so excited when I put it on because I'd heard such good things that I didn't even pay attention to the title. So, I know it's Doctor Strange 2. So I'll just jump right in and say there's going to be spoilers right away. It's been out for a while, so people can just deal with that. Let's just... Disclaimer, done. Spoilers, right? I didn't know that Scarlet Witch was the main thing in this movie.
As in, the villain? The antagonist?
I just didn't know she was going to be in it.
Ah.
If you remember, I'm a bit of a fan of the old Scarlet because I love witches. You know this, and for anyone that doesn't know this, there's a checklist for things that I like in a movie, like witches, books that you shouldn't read from, rituals, witchcraft, demons stuff. Help me out. What else is there?
Sandals,
swords, sandals, magic, sorcery.
Nicolas Cage,
wigs.
Sarah Douglas.
Right? Sarah Douglas is always a bonus, but so with all those things in the checklist in mind, if you've seen this movie, you'll now understand how I was in a good place. I'm not a huge fan of Benedict. What's his name? Cumberbatch. I'm not a huge fan of that guy. I know that everybody loves him. I'm not huge on him, but I like him as Doctor Strange. I like him in that role, so I was happy with him. And then within 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the movie, Scarlet Witch is introduced, and I thought, it's going to be one of those Marvel moments where we get an appearance, a cameo of another character Avenger for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then they're gone. So to build the whole story around her being the villain, awesome. By the way, for the record, I says to him before we actually started recording that I'm giving them nothing as to how I felt about this movie, but I can say it's 100% anger or 100% love. I will now give the big reveal.
Well, we should probably state that I saw this movie when it came out. You've literally watched it this week.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's fresh for me. I know I'm catching up late.
So as with most movies, though, I tend to be waiting a long time to hear you go, I liked it, or, nah.
I'll get round to it. The problem is, I like going back the way first, and as if you watch the show, it's about the 80s and the movies that are so bad they're good, that type of thing. A movie you might not have heard of before, and I'm recommending it because it's maybe not as bad as people say. Teen Wolf 2. I know it's terrible. It is terrible.
What show? What show are you talking about?
I'm just mentioning Teen Wolf 2.
No, I mean like what show? When you were like, if you see the show,
my show.
Cheap plug.
Aye, check it out on the channel. No, but if you've seen any of the episodes that I've done, you'll see that I'm all about shite movies. Right? Good movies are good, and there's a time and a place and all that kind of stuff. Classics, and I feel like watching a great movie, but sometimes you need some nonsense. You need crap. Not even bubblegum for the eyes, but just shit that's good because it's so bad. Anyway, back to Doctor Strange 2. I loved this movie. I loved everything about it. There was actually only one segment that I didn't like, but we'll get to that as we go through. So I've took some notes. I've got some notes. And the first note that I've got written down was, good cheesy monster squid.
Cheesy monster squid?
A cheesy monster squid. So, obviously, start of the movie, there's that. It's a squid, right?
I'm sorry. It's a squid.
Congratulations, it's a squid. I bet it's a squid.
It's kind of loosely. When I first saw it, I thought it was a Marvel. There is a Marvel character called Shumagorath who looks like this. Who looks exactly like that. It's a big eye with tentacles, but apparently it's not. It's just some demon. I'll give you a bit of there's going to be lots of trivia. I'll give you a good bit of trivia about this squid monster. You ready?
It's a squid.
The eye of the monster
Mm-hmm.
is Elizabeth Olsen's eye.
Ooh.
That's quite cool, right?
That's okay. So,
did you notice there was there's an eye motif going through the whole movie? You know,
absolutely, and that's what I was going to get to within my notes. But we'll just jump straight to that. So, obviously, Elizabeth Olsen plays the part of Wanda
Maximoff.
What's her second name? What's her what?
Maximoff.
Is that no? Well, what's the name of the Black Widow?
She's Natasha Romanoff. Clearly, when they go to like Eastern European names, they're limited. They all just need to end with a nov, an off.
Aye, but that's the thing though, because Natasha is Russian, right?
Mm.
Of Russian descent,
and
Wanda is from Sokovia.
True.
It's a fake country, but realistic sounding. Sokovian.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Elizabeth Olsen plays Wanda
Maximoff.
Maximoff, thank you. Who is the Scarlet Witch. So there's a motif, as he said there, about eyes in the movie where you'll get close-ups of her eyes or the monster that's got her eye that I didn't know until moments ago. But if you're going to have somebody to use as an eye model, a model? What the hell's a model?
Baron Mordel? That'll come up later.
Immortal Kombat. No, if you're going to use somebody as an eye model in a movie, holy moly, is Elizabeth Olsen. Yeah. Right? She's got these hypnotic eyes, a wee bit Zoe Deschanel-esque of, if you look at them, straight in the eye, you will turn to stone. That's why she never looks right at the camera, because she's broken many a camera.
Medusa-esque.
Medusa? Oh, well, there you go. There's a casting for a future. How about Elizabeth Olsen from Medusa?
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a moment at the end when she gets to... We're jumping out all over the place, but that's what we'll do. But when they get to Mount Wundagore, and there's like a mural on the wall, and she's like, oh, this isn't a tomb. This is actually... this is for me. That kind of looks like Medusa, like with the hair and stuff.
Aye. Aye. And again, if you go back to... I mean, my reference point for that is Clash of the Titans, 81, 82, 81, 82. Someone out there's going, it's 81. I'm like, sorry, man. 81, 82, but Mark Hamlin?
Harry Hamlin.
Harry Hamlin. Mark Hamill. There we go. That's my reference point. Bounce off point.
Cheese and Hamlin.
Mark and Onion. There you go. So, no, but my reference point to a Medusa character is Clash of the Titans. And if you think about the temple that she's in, if you tie that in with what you're saying about Doctor Strange 2, because that's what we're going to call it in this episode, by the way, Doctor Strange 2, because In the Mouth of Madness, no, that's a completely different movie.
Multiverse of Madness.
In the Multiverse of Madness, right. Okay.
Which is actually my, it's one of the things that I would like to talk about as a thing I didn't, there's things I didn't like, same as you, like there's moments where I go, no, this is not right. But before we get there, I feel like we have to say that this technically was like the first Marvel movie that was a horror. Do you consider it a horror?
I would consider, that's a great question.
You're welcome.
I would say...
Considering the director, do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Well, let me answer your question first, and then we'll talk about Mr. Raimi, Samuel. It's definitely the most horror of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it definitely wins that award. Is it a horror movie? I would say... Now, there's a link here. I would say it's as much a horror movie, because obviously it's an action movie, right? Obviously, first and foremost. but we're then seeing, with this horror element that it's got, it's as much a horror movie as Army of Darkness is an action movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a link there. So anyway, Sam Raimi, director, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I knew people were... The last superhero thing that he directed was Spider-Man 2, right? Or did he do Spider-Man 3 as well? I don't think he did.
I believe he's responsible for all three. Could be wrong on that. Definitely the first two.
But that's 20 years ago, 15 years ago?
Well, that ties in with what I've got here because the second line of note that I wrote down here was, feels comic-y, like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. That's the exact thing that I've got written down.
I just wonder. I wonder how they got him back. Like when it was announced, I remember thinking, how did they get Sam back? You know, like what was the thing that you stayed away from it for a long time, and this was the movie that brought you back in? I vaguely remember hearing people say that he liked Doctor Strange, or he obviously thought, well, if it's a multiverse thing, then I can play with that. But I actually think what we were talking about, the fact that they'd said, we're kind of leaning into like horror. Like we're thinking, we get a witch and a wizard gonna go at it here. We kind of need you to do this, right?
The next line that I've got of dialogue, no dialogue, but of note, is, of course there's a fucking book. It's Sam Raimi.
There are several.
There are several books, and they're all, you should not read from them. And it all types back to this checklist that I've got of, can I get some witches in there? Yep, ding, check. Can I get a good witch? Now, the character of Scarlet Witch, and again, this is, I'm actually just following my notes here, and it's actually flowing quite nicely. Scarlet Witch, see that angle of she's tormented? A tortured character. That then, if you want to say, obviously, Wanda and her being two separate entities. But if they're two separate entities, the level of torment, torture, pain, suffering that she's got enables the Scarlet Witch character personality to kind of take over. And then obviously we get our antagonist for the movie, where I was delighted because, as I said at the start, I only thought we were going to get to see her for 5-10 minutes.
Well, it's something that should be noted as well, because like the more of these that we do, people will start to notice the patterns, and as you said, like things that you like. If there's a witch in there, you've got me. If there's a book, you kind of got me. If there's swords and sandals, but something that's more niche, and I've known you for a long time, but I know that you like, it could be a male or a female character, but particularly a female character that is justified. Like she's got a reason for doing what she's doing. She's hurt. She's been wronged. And
justified is the perfect word to describe, I think, what you're saying there. But please continue.
Just that idea of the only reason she's doing any of this, does it make sense? I know there was a lot of people at the time that went, I don't like the fact that you've vilified Wanda. That was a big comment at the time, where people were going, after WandaVision, it was kind of like, yeah, she's become Scarlet Witch, but she's good now, right? Like she's realized the error of her ways and everything's cool. And then you start this movie, and what is it? Within the first 10 minutes, she's like, I'm chasing down this girl because I want to kill her and steal her powers.
Like, was it the ends don't justify the means, or whatever that line is? But the reason she's doing it, it's not just, she's not M. Bison. She's not doing it just for, it was a Tuesday. She's not just for the hell of it. She's actually got a reason. And and again, we talk about spoilers, but the whole point of the movie is that she's trying to get into a universe, part of the, a universe within the multiverse where she's got kids and she's happy. Now, to have any bad guy come at you and say, well, the reason I'm doing this is actually for this. It's not very often that you get a bad guy that, most of the time the bad guys are doing whatever they're doing because they want money, they want world domination, they want this, they want that. But how often do we get a bad guy that's actually saying, listen, I'm just doing this because of, and underneath it is a noble cause? Does it happen more often than I'm realising here? I don't think it does.
I mean, I think they're leaning a lot into like trying to get women's stories to the forefront of a lot of this Marvel stuff. And I think this
Absolutely,
one, more than anything else, I thought was really interesting because I think she's got a line at the start where she says something, Doctor Strange, it's like you basically, because he's a problematic character as well, right? Like in Infinity War and Endgame, he gives the Time Stone to Thanos, so that snap would never have happened if it wasn't for him, but he's got the whole thing about, there's 14 billion scenarios, this is the only one that we win. But she throws it back at him and she's like, well, how come you sacrifice half the universe and you're a hero, you're a savior, but I just want to kill this one girl and I'm the villain. And she says, that doesn't seem fair. Mm-hmm. And I actually really like that I think that sums up what you were saying of, I like a evil female character that's just like, you know what, I'm getting vengeance here, but I've got a really good reason for it.
Aye. And it's not just vengeance for the sake of it. You know, in the way of, you killed my father. My name, what's his name? My name is Diego Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Prepare to die.
Is that his name? No,
Inigo.
Is it Inigo Montoya?
Yeah.
But it's not just vengeance for the sake of vengeance.
No.
She's got an end goal. She's got an end game. Huh? Moving on, the character herself, you talked about people maybe not being happy about villainising Wanda. Well, I say to hell with that. That's the only way I can say it. Like, I thought it was brilliant because when she first came into it, come back to my timeline, and this is something that people listening will need to get used to, tangents are a thing. It's a free-ranging movie conversation. We will go everywhere and back, but we'll try our best to focus on one sort of movie or theme. So in this instance, it's just Marvel as a whole.
This is the Elizabeth Olsen section.
Aye. This is chapter 3.
Skip to 35 minutes if you want us to stop talking about Elizabeth Olsen.
Aye. Chapter 26, Elizabeth Olsen's left eye. No, but what I'm saying is, I like the fact that I was surprised that she was even in it, because as you know, but other people out there don't know, I don't like to watch trailers. Even though some trailers don't give you spoilers, that trailer for that movie would have shown me that she's in it. So that's a surprise that's taken away from me, the viewer that gets to watch it.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it anyway. I don't need to watch a trailer. So I was happy that she's there. I'm then delighted that there's a massive character arc that's happening here. Well, not even an arc, it's like I feel as if I want to say it's like the ending of an arc and a beginning of a new one as, you know, this sort of villain. But
well, people forget as well that she did technically start as a villain. That was what I kept bringing up to people. I was like, when she first appears, you know, it's her and Quicksilver, and they're kind of these like mutants that are in Sokovia. I mean, they're locked up, so they're being experimented on and blah, 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 blah. They didn't know what they were doing with the character at the time. But she starts as a bad guy. She gets all the Avengers to fight each other, so I don't understand why this was so surprising to people, you know?
Well, the change caught me. And obviously that sort of surprise moment is intended by the creators. It worked with me. I was like, oh, she's going to be a bad guy.
So did you clock the thing when she was like, she mentioned America's name, America, who we'll come back to, but when she mentioned the name and then she's like, oh shit, you didn't tell me what she was called. Were you having a moment going, wow?
No, I was like, what? The problem I had was I thought this other person's name was Erica.
Oh, okay. Erica Chavez.
Right? I thought it was Erica Chavez, which makes a lot more sense than America Chavez. That doesn't... Is that... you know, we're just naming people after countries now? Is that a thing? What's your name? America. Brilliant.
I do think it's a weird choice, but it is a carryover from the comics.
Aye. But from that, the first time that they've met, or she mentions America, within the context, I thought she meant the country. I was like, what's going on here? Is this some sort of side spin-off thing that I've not seen because I don't watch everything in the cinematic TV universe because I don't consider it canon? Controversial statement. But I'm not a huge fan of Marvel TV. I'm not going to watch them. Why? Because...
You shouldn't have to.
That's it. Thank you. I shouldn't have to. And there was times in this movie where I think if you could have got lost in this movie.
Yeah.
No, and again, I know that that's supposed to happen for the title of the movie's got that in there, but it's a movie that you can quite easily, if you're in the cinema and you went to the toilet, you come back, you're like, what the hell is going on here? Where are we now?
I think it's also part of its problem for me, though, as well. Like, I think there was a resistance. I think you can see a resistance throughout the whole movie to go too far. You know, you've got Sam Raimi at the helm, and there is bits, and I've made notes of the bits that I'm like, these are very, like, Sam Raimi moments. But to not, you know, that idea of sort of going, well, the audience, you kind of need to give them a bit of time to understand what's going on here. I think you do and you don't a wee bit. Like something like Guardians of the Galaxy, you're in space, there's a talking raccoon, there's a massive tree that only says 3 words, but somehow you know what he's saying. How is that easier to understand than going, yeah, there's a witch and a wizard, and a lot of this is going to be magic, just keep up.
But I think, so would you say
Pandering,
that,
a little bit of pandering, I felt like.
But I felt as if this movie was made for my type of superhero side. So, for people out there that don't know, or of course you don't know, this is me telling you for the first time, I'm not a Captain America fan. I know you are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not I don't like Iron Man either. I can hear everybody going, boo! You suck! You suck!
But you mean like the environment of those movies, do you know, like, right? Like you're like, Captain America is like an espionage movie. Iron Man is like a classic action superhero, very baseline thing. And then you're like, well, if you're gonna give me dragons and witches and wizards, give me them to like 11.
Well, isn't it ironic? Said Alanis Morissette. Thank you. I was waiting for it. No, isn't it ironic that the movies that I would watch repeatedly from the cinema, the Marvel universe, is Thor, the Thor movies, and Guardians, and obviously Deadpool. But that's an exception just for the comedy with in this. Are we actually going there in this sort of kiddies universe? Whoa! Do you know what I mean? So if you look at what I like. And my universe of taste, I'm not watching the Iron Man movies. I'm not watching Captain America. No, I don't mind the characters, but the movies, I'm like, no, because as you said, it's those type of movies that, again, I'm getting boos here. I'm not a James Bond fan. I don't dig on the whole spy thing.
It's just not your thing.
It's just not my thing. I respect it. I mean, obviously, it's been going for how long, and I know a lot of people do like it. It's just, I would rather be the guy that's got, the bandana on, running through the jungle with a gun in each arm, blowing up everything running about me. I think that's called Rambo, right? So, well, Rambo 2, really. Commando, for that reason. It's a free-ranging conversation. We're all over the place here. So, back to Doctor Strange 2.
It was part of my thing that when this happened, I was kind of predisposed to. I really liked the first Doctor Strange, but one of the things from the moment I walked out the cinema is I said, I feel like there's not enough magic in this movie. In the first one, I just didn't feel. He was using the shields. He'd do like the orange shields, and he had the whips. But if you compare those two movies, like what the kind of magic that he's pulling out in Multiverse of Madness compared to that first movie, I get it. Like, okay, he's learned a bit more. It's
a sequel. It's got to be bigger and better. Yeah.
But at the time when that first movie came out, I was like, people are not ready for him to be pulling demons out of a 6-demon bag.
Hey.
They were not ready for it. Do you know what I'm saying, though? Like, and when I was reading, I really liked Doctor Strange comics when I was a kid. I would say Strange and Guardians was where I went because I liked things when they were cosmic. I liked things when they were magical because I was like, okay, this is not reality, which is what you're saying, right? Like Captain America and Iron Man, there's a little more of like, oh, fuck, there's politics in this, like I need to know government secrets.
I need to know what a senator is, and right. And what go away. It's superhero movies they're there for that sense of escape. That's why you read your comic books. That's why you watch your cartoons. That's why you watch your movies or TV shows. It's an escapism. So for me to escape into a world where we're in fucking Baghdad and, there's missiles going off around, that's not a superhero. I'm not saying it's not a superhero movie, but it's just like...
Bit too real. Bit too, in the real world for it. I think that's why they went to Sam,
Watch the news. You know what I mean?
I think that answers the question we said earlier of why get Sam Raimi in to do this. I think that's why. Because they went, we need a guy where if we give him the reins for a second here, Claude.
Yep. Oh, you beat me to it, you bastard.
And go, yeah, we kind of want horror, but we as a company, as Marvel, the studio, we don't really know how to approach that. Like, we want it to still be applicable to kind of all ranges, quote unquote. You know, like let's make sure the kids can go and see it. But Sam, you mentioned Army of Darkness earlier, and I think it is closer to that than it is Evil Dead 1 or 2 because there's a sense of the silly. It keeps it in that.
But there's also something that I totally noticed, and I'm like, and I liked it, and I don't think he was paying homage to himself, but I think he was just doing something that he's done before, but because he's got the experience of filming this bit before, he's done it better this time. See, when we're at the bit when, and I'm terrible with names of things, people, so he'll fill in the blanks here, but see the fortress that they need to defend?
Camertage.
Yep, that place. And it's like they're under siege from the witch.
Yeah.
When that sort of mini montage is happening as the guards run out on top of the, the whatever they're called, the castle walls, and they're readying themselves for battle to defend the place. That was absolutely the same as Army of Darkness.
Right.
Absolutely the same. I'm not going to sit here and say, it's shot for shot the same, but I just found it really ironic that we've got this sort of fort that's to be defended against this, I'll say horde, even though it's one person, but in Army of Darkness that would be the Deadites coming.
I agree with you. It's interesting though because it's one of the notes that I made. The exact note I made was that Camertage fight just sucks. In my opinion, I don't like that moment, and I've just wrote here I would have just had her like infiltrate that place and try and capture America or assassinate her rather than the whole. I've literally wrote army of wizards shit.
Nice.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the moment when she sort of clocks the weak guy and then appears behind him and says, run. That's really good. But
so just to explain to anybody that's missing that wee bit we're talking about, so she's basically flying into the zone of this fort to try and, break in so that she can kidnap, abduct America, the person, not the country. And when she's, obviously all these, what are they, monks?
Technically, yeah.
Technically, monks.
Wizard
monks. Wonks.
Careful.
they're all wonks. No, so they're all doing their thing, and they've got this combined our powers shield thing happening, and she's firing stuff down, and they're battering it away. But then she starts to sort of, as he said there, looks for the sort of weak one in the crowd that's maybe not strong mentally, and she infiltrates his mind. Glorious the way they did that. I thought it was. They could actually. I think they could have went a wee bit further with it because it shows you, appear behind him, sort of whispering in his ear. Like this. She's whispering.
Well, it's also a lot of people didn't clock it, but it is a callback to Age of Ultron when she's first taking over the Avengers. She does the weird kind of hand thing in their head, and it makes them all see their worst fear. It felt like that, and I was like, oh, that's quite good. That's like a callback to, because I don't know. I feel like in things like Infinity War and Endgame, Wanda, she is one of the most powerful ones. Let's be honest. She's probably the most powerful one. I know that's an endless question that people will debate forever, but Scarlet Witch is a fucking powerful character. And when you had her in those movies where there's 72 Avengers, you kind of have to tone her down a bit, otherwise she will just own everybody.
But you need to find a way of toning her down, i.e. the whole, if we can dip her toe in the DC pond, you need to do it with Superman. Because let's face it, I mean...
Or the other comparison that always gets made is the Professor X problem, which we'll get to because we can talk about that as well. But every time Xavier is in a movie, you have to depower him or else he will just own everybody,
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a list of my Sam Raimi things. Here's something that you are better at than me, but I think you're going to be proud that I clocked this and I want to talk about it. I think the sound design in this movie and the soundtrack is phenomenal.
I felt... Right, so first of all, the soundtrack, the actual music used, not just the actual songs,
Mm.
but see when I say the timing, the placement of them,
Mm-hmm.
I think is what you're touching on here as well. 100%. The music, again, when we talk about it potentially being a horror movie, some of the music is dark. I think overall, the movie smacks of Sam Raimi.
Dutch tilts.
Oh,
Several.
right. So, it wasn't even Dutch.
I mean, he had lots of weird, like, hard cuts and screen wipes. There's a moment when Strange gets poisoned by the...
Yep.
I can't remember what the sands are called. The sands of something. But he's, like, on the floor about to pass out, and they do one of those, like, Star Wars... See, when the circle gets smaller and smaller into his face?
Aye. That transition, what's it called? Aye.
And Marvel's never did anything like that. I think you need to be a real... like film fan to notice this stuff. Otherwise people are just going, oh, I'm not following the story, or I don't like this. But when I see stuff like that, I go, this is...
But that's the thing. When I said about the movie, you could quite easily lose yourself, where you are in the movie, because it goes all over the place all the time. And I think that's going to put some noses out of joint, because when these sort of, let's say, just these cheesy Marvel movies are coming out, not most people, but a lot of the audience are looking for this sort of beginning, middle, end, good guy, bad guy. So when something like this comes along, it's a wee bit more, what the fuck? When that happens, then you're going to lose some of your audience, but you're going to gain some audience, like me here, where I've got that added little bit of love, because it's Sam Raimi doing Sam Raimi stuff. How many moments of that movie were you sitting there going, aye, that was very Raimi-ish?
I had a list of Raimi moments, and as I was looking through it, I was going, these do get progressively worse as the movie goes on. I mean, worse in, like, the gore element gets turned up slightly. So the first one is Strange getting, like, stabbed by the demon in the opening scene in the leg, and he kind of looks at his leg, and he's like, fuck, he's like, I'm in pain. The second moment is the gouge, the big tentacle monster with a big eye. Yep. The way he kills it is he stabs it in the eye and gouges its eye out, which I was going, can you do that in a Marvel movie? Is that...
Well, it caught me because the way they do it is obviously, he uses a telephone pole?
Something like that, yeah.
Like a stop sign or something, and he pierces the eye, which I thought was bad enough when he sticks it in the eye.
But then he popped it out.
But when he fucking popped, he rips it, you could literally hear the...
Yeah.
I was like, whoa!
But you can see how, like, that made people go, okay, 5 minutes into the movie, I know what I'm in for. This could potentially get worse. And then you get to things like when she comes out of the gong, like Samara coming out the TV in the ring, like the cracking of the bones. I was like, okay, that's a step up. And then by the end of the movie, she's literally kind of covered in blood and chasing them through. It's not blood, it's Ultron fluid. I know.
You see, right? And I'm sitting watching it, and I'm like, so at this point, what it becomes is this sort of, she's pursuing them almost like a Michael Myers.
It was very, that ending feels very like that.
And nothing against it, but what you've got is this horror being chasing you, and she's just walking.
Christopher.
Hey, but she's walking, and it's, when she ends up barefoot, and she's walking, and she's got a sort of weird shuffle.
A limp.
It's a limp, right? There's no need for that to be there, but that added wee bit as she's pursuing you. Maybe even a wee bit of The Shining in there. See, right? And I'll get back.
Now that you say that, you are 100% right with the dragging of the leg. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Jack. But the other Shining reference that I've got there that I've actually got written down is, see the part when we get to see good Wanda trapped? Loved it. Now remember, everything's absolute white, and then from behind Xavier comes the red mist. I thought that was very Kubrick-esque, i.e. The Shining. See that really sort of Tony Stark contrast to that bright white, but with that thick, deep red just sort of coming through the background to all engrossing. I thought that was brilliant, and the sinister edge to it. That's why Sam Raimi was there for moments like that.
It's probably the most wholesome, or like, it's the wrong word for it, but it's the most wholesome or genuine scare in the
Aye.
whole movie, in my opinion. And I remember people in the cinema going, whoa, when she appeared behind him, because they make it look creepy. It's only there for a second. It's a blink and you'll miss it. Sort of a couple of frames of Elizabeth Olsen snapping Xavier's neck. But I love that. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we'll get to the fact that it was fucking Patrick Stewart standing there. But
yeah, he actually killed himself in that movie.
Did you notice you notice the costume choice?
Did I notice the costume? I noticed that his wee cart was yellow.
Well, yeah, and they also used the music. They had the
totally.
They're very cool.
Now, can we just?
He was wearing a turtleneck. That's what I was getting at.
Oh, fantastic!
We love a turtleneck.
We do. But jumping on the back of the wheelchair that he's in, it's not even a wheelchair. What is it? Like a flying buggy?
I don't know what he calls it. You'd need to ask him.
His chair.
He calls it his chair.
His Xavier chair.
Get me his chair.
You sounded like Hingme there.
Ian McKellen.
Put two coins on his eyes for the boatman.
Let me wash his body. We'll get to Troy. That's another day.
No, where I was at was...
Do you want to talk about the Illuminati? Is that where you want to go?
Well, that's where I'm going. Yep. I've got other things I want to jump back to.
Mm.
I mean, this podcast is all over the place. But the movie's all over the place, so that's fine. It works, right? So, at one point in the movie, you're about to be taken to what would have been the equivalent of S.H.I.E.L.D. or...
I guess the Avengers facility, right? Like, whoever's protecting the planet.
Would that not be S.H.I.E.L.D., though?
You have to remember, S.H.I.E.L.D. no longer exists.
Aye, but in some universe, like, whatever power's in charge. Where I was going to was, at one moment in the movie, we're taken to what would have been S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever, and it turns out they're called the Illuminati, which I thought was ridiculous. Why are they called the Illuminati? Is that not the dollar bill stuff?
They are in the comic books. Illuminati is a team in the comic books. I knew when it happened, I was like, okay, it's from the comics. And blah, blah, blah. But it's the fact that when they go, I think Baron Mordo walks into Strange when he's captured in the glass case of emotion. And he's like, the Illuminati will see you now. And Strange goes, the Illuma-whatty? And I'm like, that's a fucking terrible line.
Aye.
Like, Doctor Strange knows what the Illuminati is. I don't care what universe you're from. That's a terrible line.
We'll get back to the Illuminati in a second, but I'll jump back to the very beginning when he needs to kill the little America. He needs to kill America.
Yeah.
And she says to him, you're going to kill me? And he says, yes, I know. I can't remember what the line exactly was, but I'm like, whoa, who wrote that line? Are we really keeping that in?
I'll tell you also, if we're talking about bad lines, I think the worst one is when Wanda reveals herself in that first moment, oh, you didn't tell me her name. No, I didn't. And she reveals herself. There's a bit, she's like, I've got the dark hold, I don't think that's fair, the stuff that we've talked about. At the end of that scene, she turns to her and she goes, she turns to Strange and she says, it won't be Wanda that comes for her. It'll be the Scarlet Witch. And I cannot stand that line.
This is where we differ. This is where we differ, because I fucking love that line, man. It was like, hey, I'm trying to be nice. We can deal with this, gentlemen, or gentle ladies, gentle witches, or I will send the Scarlet Witch.
I just think it needed a rewrite. I get the intention behind it, but I think that line needs a rewrite. It won't be Wanda that comes for her. For a start, she's referring to herself in the third person, which is a weird thing for anybody to do, unless you're Dwayne Johnson. It's a weird thing for people to do.
I'm all for it.
I feel like I wish the camera had cut back to Strange in that moment, and he just went. How do we giggle?
And I walked towards the camera. Off. I mean, again, but that's the difference there. Are we going to go comedy? Or are we going to keep it more horror? But I like the line. I thought it was powerful.
It just
cheesy, yes.
Just felt like they'd put it in there because they were like, just in case anybody doesn't know that she's now called the Scarlet Witch, here's a line just to remind you of that.
Aye.
Because for the casual watcher of Marvel, she's just Wanda, right?
She might as well just be standing there with a jumper that says, hi, my name is Scarlet Witch.
Exactly.
But no, again, but that ties into what I'm saying about the TV shows of this cinematic Marvel universe. Okay, I will allow these TV shows to exist, but on the basis of don't be mentioning this stuff in the movies.
Yeah, and I think
don't make it canon because it's no fair.
I think
That's
considering how hard a job that is to do, I think they do really well with that. Like,
keeping it separate.
Yeah, I don't think. I'm conscious we were talking about the Illuminati. I don't think because that Illuminati thing I thought was going to be a moment. A mate of mine called it Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Cameos because that was a lot in one scene. That was a lot to just go, oh, here's a Captain Marvel variant. Here's a. Can I ask you a really interesting question for me? Right?
Please.
Of that lineup, I feel like you went, okay, Baron Mordo. I remember him from the first Doctor Strange movie, and he was Chiwetel Ejiofor. He's great, and I love him. By the way, underused. That was one of my notes of what I don't like about this movie. Underused.
What else is he in?
He was in...
I seem to have recognised his name.
He was in Kinky Boots. He was in 12 Years a Slave.
I've heard that 12 Years a Slave was like a very good movie, very successful, but I've never actually watched it. Again, it's not my style of movie. There's no witches, there's no magic, there's no...
There's definitely no witches in 12 Years a Slave. He's a good actor, and they kind of set him up at the end of the first Doctor Strange movie to be the bad guy, because Baron Mordo has always been Doctor Strange's like arch nemesis. It's like Venom as Spider-Man or Joker as Batman. Like Doctor Strange's was always, in my opinion, was always kind of Baron Mordo.
I like the fact that he's a Baron.
I like it too, but there was a moment at the end, the post-credit scene of that first movie is Baron Mordo going to a guy and like basically Shang Tsung taking the powers away from him because he's a wizard as well, or he's a sorcerer. So he takes his sorcerer's powers away from him and he goes, you know, that's the problem with the world. Too many sorcerers. And it cuts to black and I was like, okay. So the next movie you're going to get Baron Mordo saying, I'm just going to eradicate all the magic because you people are going to fuck around with it. I was like really excited for that and we didn't get any of that so far.
Mm-hmm. I liked the guy. What was his name again?
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
For some reason I can remember names from the 70s and the 80s up to mid-90s with no problem at all. Like Dick Durock, Heather Locklear.
He's a beautiful man. He's a very good actor. But what I'm asking you here is about that Illuminati scene, right? So Baron Mordo turns up. You go, right, I've seen you in the first movie. Fine. Peggy Carter turns up and she's got Captain America's shield. And you go, okay, that's interesting. So it's an alternate universe. And rather than it being Steve Rogers, it's Peggy. So you've made it clear though, you don't like Captain America.
I don't like Captain America.
Why should you know this, right?
But
yeah, so the whole thing is he gets like frozen in ice, right? And then he wakes up in 2010 and he's like 90 years old. And the whole thing is that he left Peggy behind. He crashes the plane into the ice and Peggy's his girlfriend at the time. I'm a Captain America fan, but the fact that the final scene of Endgame is him and Peggy having a dance in the living room, I love that. That's good. That's a whole other episode as far as I'm concerned. But yes, so it's the same actor that played Peggy, but they've put her in a Captain America outfit and gave her a shield.
Aye. Captain UK.
Captain Britain. She's got a wee jetpack.
But the fact that it was like Captain UK, I was like, what? What's going on there? Why? That's sort of deviating way too much away from what it was. But she was English, right?
She is.
Peggy.
Haley Atwell she's English in real life. And Peggy was English too. Yeah.
Right.
But this is the hilarity of what I've been trying to get to ask you. I'm like, all right, okay. So Baron Mordo, you're like,
we're getting there.
I know him. You know, Peggy Carter turns up. You're like, it's a familiar face, and okay, I guess it's Captain Britain because she's got a shield. So you made that association, and then it goes like Captain Marvel. You're like, like Defender of the Cosmos, and you were like, okay. So my first question here is, have you seen Captain Marvel?
Yes, I've seen Captain Marvel, and I was one of the only 6 people on the planet that went, I thought it was all right.
I thought it was all right too.
Well, you're number 5, and I'm number 6.
Yep. So we're going along. When you saw that Captain Marvel, did you go, okay, Captain Marvel, fine?
I was expecting Brie Larson.
Yeah, but it's a multiverse.
Of course, it's an alternate.
Right? So it's an alternate.
But I thought that there was maybe a chance that because we've not seen enough of her in the universe, if that makes sense, cinematically, I thought they were going to have our universe's equivalent of her there because she could. I was a mixture of hoping and expecting.
Yeah, you understood why they were like, okay, I know that that's a Captain America variant. I know that that's a Captain Marvel variant. And we've got Baron Mordo. And here's the one that I've been dying to ask you about. So when Blackagar Boltagon turned up...
What's his name again?
Blackagar Boltagon?
Again?
Blackagar Boltagon.
What? Blackagar Boltagon?
Yeah, Black Bolt.
Right. Oh, right, that's the audio guy.
Whatmouth?
His name's Whatmouth?
Well, the question I'm asking here is, you're sitting in that theatre at that point going, who the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
First impression, I was not impressed by him.
Could you, if I asked you what is his powers, could you tell me?
Well, I'm guessing it's like some sort of supersonic alpha waves, huh? He uses the little black box.
He can't
His little
speak.
black voice box.
He can't speak. If he just whispers, that happens. Like, obviously he ends up killing the alternate Strange, but he's mute. He can't speak.
So he's... Right, he can't speak because if he does speak, that's what happens.
I think...
So he's...
Nobody's gonna come and correct me on the Inhumans, and if you want to, come at me. It's a terrible TV show, but I'm pretty sure he kills his parents because he's born with the power, and
like the first time he cried,
something like that.
He would have at birth. Yeah. He would have killed his mother.
Both of them, I think.
And the Doctor.
Mm.
Wow.
Anyway, I was dying to ask you about Blackagar Boltagon because let's say it again. I just enjoy saying his name.
I don't even want to attempt to say it.
It's one of the worst.
But you can feel free.
It's one of the worst. You know how like you've got Peter Parker, Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, Tony Stark, Martha Wayne, right? And then you've got Blackagar Boltagon. I mean, come on. Loved it.
I love it. Love everything about it. But let's get to
the fact that they got the actor from that show. So that guy that is in that ridiculous outfit with the tuning fork on his head is the guy that was from the TV show that bombed. It was a failure. And I was just like, I think in the comic books, he is in the Illuminati. So they went, okay, well, let's actually get a member that is accurate to the comics. But that must have been a weird conversation for the studio to have with him. That must have been so strange.
Aye, but is there a chance, and again, I don't know timescales here, but correct me, or someone, is there a chance that this was filmed or contracted at a point where they thought that show might have done well, and then it bombed, but too late?
No, I'm going to tell you right now. I think Marvel's Inhumans was 2017, and I don't even think they got a second season.
And what was Doctor Strange? 2022?
What, Multiverse of Madness? Yeah, 2022. Yeah.
2022.
It was so before. Like, even me, who I'm a fan of the movies, I know a little bit about the comics. When he turned up, I went, what the fuck?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was laughing, not laughing, but I was like, who's this schmuck? That was my first impression. But by the end of his appearance, I was like, ooh, I liked that. Also,
maybe you should go and watch The Inhumans.
well, that takes me to, I've written down Whatmouth ? And I've wrote underneath it, she fucking matrixed him. So in the movie, again, for people that haven't seen it or just listening to the ramblings that we're seeming to do, he's about to use his power, to destroy her, which he can. And she's like, Whatmouth? And all of a sudden, his mouth is gone. So when he tries to make the sound, it reverbs back the way and just explodes him. Class. Death by inner audio.
Death by inner tuning fork.
She fucking matrixed him.
Right.
How good was that? That was awesome.
Do you think they went, let's do the Matrix thing? Do you think that was just what they said in the room?
I mean, it was very, very... There's no getting away from the fact that it was very similar. Obviously, the Matrix moment, what good is a mouth what good is a phone call if you're unable to speak? They take away his mouth. Well, perfect way to stop this guy whose superpower is his vocal cords. Take away his mouth. Mm-hmm. What's he going to do? Blow noises out his nostrils? I mean, I would pay money to see that.
It is weird that he decides to say something though, right? Like, if he is a guy that has been mute his entire life, and
But
knows that if he speaks, he's probably going to kill somebody. It is weird that when he had no mouth, the first thing he did was, fucking hell, and blew his head off.
But is that not... I thought his power was... So in other words, what you're telling me is he's never used his power before.
Oh no, he's definitely used it.
Right, so he's spoken it.
He's definitely spoken.
Right, so it's not going to be
But
the
he's
first time
just
he does it, so
hyper
he
aware
knows.
of the fact that if he speaks, it's a problem. So you'd think that would be the worst place for you to speak, considering your mouth no longer exists. But it's fear, right? It's just fear. Like, that's the whole point of that scene, is that she owns them. She destroys them in like 5 minutes.
But that's the thing, and that takes us back again to the best thing about the movie. Scarlet Witch. Would you agree with that? Like, the best thing about this movie is, when I say the Scarlet Witch, I mean the thing of Elizabeth Olsen, the character, the story we get of it, the point of the story. I think all of those ingredients together as a whole, this thing of the Scarlet Witch, amazing. Part of the Illuminati that we were going to get back to, which was the one that I thought you were going to talk about, rather than, what's his name?
Blackagar Boltagon.
Thank you. Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four appears in this movie.
Yep.
So, I am Job, but I'm also a huge Office fan. But I think I've seen Jim, obviously, Jim Halpert. I've seen Jim in, I think, one other movie. Can't remember what movie it was. He was a bit of a bad guy.
A Quiet Place.
Was it A Quiet Place?
I don't know. I mean, his name is John Krasinski. I don't think I've seen him in that much either, outside of The Office and this.
Did I not call him John Krasinski? Did I call him something else?
I think you called him whatever his name is in The Office. Jim.
Yeah. Jim Krasinski. That guy. So, he comes out as Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, let's talk about it. That moment, to me, it got the biggest cheer. Like, I saw it in the cinema. That moment, people went nuts. People were like...
Was there a cheer? Right.
An audible cheer. That was like Garfield appearing in the Spider-Man outfit when he pulls the mask off and people went, whoa! Because I think a lot of that was like, okay, the Fantastic Four are here. So it was just Marvel acknowledging that was getting people excited. And then I know, because I'd mentioned this to you, like, Krasinski was kind of like fan casting. It was like, everybody would love Willem Dafoe to play the Joker, but that's probably not going to happen because he's been the Green Goblin. But the man has a face that looks like the Joker.
Aye.
I think Krasinski was that for Mr. Fantastic. A lot of people were going, no, we want it to be him. So I'm in two minds about it. I liked that it happened and I went, hey, that's really cool. But I was like, okay, but it is a variant of him and then he died 2 minutes later. So if they decide to do a movie, if they decide to do the Fantastic Four, does that mean he's now off the table? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think they've set it up. Well, what they've done is shoot themselves in the rubber foot because if they are introducing John
Krasinski.
Thank you. If they're introducing him as Mr. Fantastic from this universe, so in this universe, that's Mr. Fantastic. Well, you've just killed him. Which means if you're going to bring him back some, in a different universe, well, it's not going to be John Krasinski, is it? It's going to be somebody else. You've already killed him off in that universe.
You say that, but all of the Doctor Strange variants look the same. So
why is there Captain UK then?
Why is there 3 different Spider-Men?
Well, we'll get to that one day. That's a whole podcast in itself.
I think what I'm saying is I don't think Krasinski is off the table. I would still like to see that. I think he was fine as Reed Richards. Let's call him by name. I think he was a good Mr. Fantastic. I'll tell you the thing that I don't like about that character design.
The beard?
No, I don't even mind the beard. Like,
he didn't have a beard.
I know, but I know John does in real life, and I think...
We've seen this before.
What, with a mustache?
With a mustache.
Mustache gate. I think it was a very last minute thing. I think it was like a reshoot. Because see, if you actually watch Krasinski performing it, I don't even think he's in the same room as Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
I think they filmed that super, super late. And do you know also what makes me think that? And if you go back and just put the scene on, I think the suit, you know, the Fantastic Four outfit, with like the classic outfit with the blue and the black, and it's got the 4 on the chest.
I liked it. I thought the suit looked good. Maybe a wee bit dark. Maybe
I
a tiny
agree.
bit dark.
But I think it's CGI.
Why the fuck would you CGI the suit? Why not just put a suit on the guy?
It's not the first time Marvel has done that.
No, I know, but why not just... Does that add weight to my argument of, come on?
I think this is what I mean about it was last minute. I think they got John Krasinski in a room and they said, we don't have a suit, we need you to say a couple of lines, this is going to be a cameo, are you up for this?
There's a green morph suit.
There's something weird about the way that suit looks. It doesn't look like John Krasinski's body. I know that's weird.
I didn't notice that.
Go back, like, when we're done here, just click that scene on and just have a look at the suit specifically. Forget about the face, just look at that suit. I liked that it was comic accurate, but I think it's CG, and that threw me off a wee bit.
But why has he got a beard?
Is that much of a problem, though?
It was.
You have to remember, though, that there has been comics where Reed has a beard.
Of course, because...
That's not a random thing.
Superman's had a beard before in a comic.
Yeah, but there's actually, like, quite a lot of Fantastic Four comics where he's got a beard. I would say the definitive thing about Reed Richards, like, you've got him in the Fantastic Four outfit.
It's the silver hair.
It's the silver, aye.
Reeling it all back in and moving on, one thing that I did note down that I thought, So the point in the movie where a dead Doctor Strange is resurrected, when he then is under attack by the demons, which was very, very Evil Dead-esque again, where you've got these voices doing the whole, I mean, dare I do the impersonation? We will take your soul! You know, that kind of stuff. That is going on there. You know, with these things that are popping out. You know. When he realizes that he can use the demons, and he turns them into his fucking cloak. That was awesome.
A beautiful moment.
It was grisly, it was dark, it looked great.
I feel like that was probably the thing that Sam Raimi fought for the hardest. I've just got this image of him being like in a meeting room with a bunch of studio execs at Marvel, and they're like, so we've got to this point in the script where Doctor Strange is going to use a cloak of demons. Is that what you want to do? And Sam Raimi was like, that's exactly what I want to do. And he will have half of his face missing, and you will see the teeth in his head.
Yep.
And these demons are going to fight the witch, and they'll be like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And Sam's like, if you don't let me do this, I'm not doing the movie.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Aye.
I feel like that was his one thing. That one moment, just to me, you're right. It felt like an Evil Dead.
I will take what you've given me there, and I will run with it a little bit in my weird, ridiculous way. I think it was more a case of like, Sam Raimi marched into the Marvel building up high in the sky. You need to take a jetpack to get to it. I think he flew up to the Marvel building, kicked open the door. He had like a parchment, see, like old school papyrus.
A book with an eye on it.
No, just like one sheet of paper.
Yeah.
Like fucking Hook. And he's just pinned it to the wall.
And it just says, Demon Cloak.
It says books, witches, Elizabeth Olsen, eyes. What's that bad guy? What's that guy's name again?
What guy? There's a few that we've talked about.
The guy that I can't say his name.
Oh, Blackadar Boltagon
is on the list, right?
I don't feel like
the Sam Raimi demandments.
That's one that I don't think that was Sam's idea.
That came from corporate.
I think so.
The mouse spoken. Anyway, so the cloak, the darkness, and again that goes back to what we were talking about. Is the movie more horror than it is action? Well, I mean, I think it's, if you were to take it and look at it like it's an action movie that's dipped in a chocolate that's horror.
Chocolate.
Wow. And that's where we end up to at this point in the podcast. We're shouting chocolate. One thing that I wrote down that I was like, that's a moment. So people talk about Iron Man, and this is where I'm going to say the line incorrectly, and you're going to correct me. I love you 3,000?
Yes.
Was that accurate?
Yeah, I love you 3,000.
I love you 3,000, right. So everybody seemed to go on about that, and I'm like, maybe it's because I'm not a huge lover of Iron Man at that moment. Sort of, I get what it's doing, that sentimental moment, but it didn't really have an effect on me. This movie, for me, had a better moment than that, and that's a bold statement. Somebody we've not mentioned yet.
There's at least 3 characters that we haven't spoke about at all. We've done cameos, we've done a little bit of Doctor Strange, we've done a lot of Elizabeth Olsen, but there's at least 3 people that we've not talked about at all yet. And I feel like your first one is Rachel McAdams.
The angels just sang the name. It's true. It's Rachel McAdams. We deviate from my I Love You 3000 equivalent.
Okay.
So obviously it's the multiverse. There's versions of Doctor Strange, a plethora of Doctor Stranges. And obviously that means there's a plethora of Christine, Rachel McAdams. When he talks to her at the end and he hits her with the line, I was like, oh, that's I love you in every universe. That is glorious. I think there's a lot more power behind that than I Love You 3000.
I think they could have did a bit more with Christine, though.
Do you think?
I really do.
I don't think I know the character well enough to...
She's not necessarily like a big character. She doesn't become some sort of superhero that you've never heard about. I would say even in the first Doctor Strange movie, she wasn't used as much as she could be used. She is the Lois Lane to his Clark Kent. And I just don't get that. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is a really good line. I love you in all universes. I think they gave...
In every universe.
I think they gave Rachel more to do in this movie than they did in the last movie, but I still don't... She still just feels like the side chick. She still just feels like not that important. And I'm like, Rachel McAdams is a fucking brilliant actor. She's not being used to her full ability here.
Yeah.
Which is what I mean, like, when she had the sort of, whatever it is, I can't remember what they call it, the brazier thing that she kills the demons with, and she's like, go to hell. And I was like, yeah, it's great.
What the hell was that? Homemade fire?
Yeah.
What the hell was that? I don't know what that was. That Greek fire?
Some sort of relic. I guess it's like the Crimson Bands of Watun or the Staff of the Living Tribunal. Like, Strange has got all these weird relics, right? It's kind of a nod to the first movie. Can I say finally on the Christine thing? Because I don't think there's a lot to say about Christine. But at the start, when he goes to her wedding, right? And he like, can I get you a drink? And he fills it up, and she's like, really great. Yeah, sorcerer, brilliant. There's a moment, and I did make the note of this, and my note says exactly this. It says, some good New York action at the beginning, 8 minutes in, with a giant fucking monster, yes. And then the side note, the one right underneath that says, also, maybe one of my all-time favourite suit-up moments.
It was yes. That was, I mean, when you say all-time...
That's a big statement.
That's a big statement. I mean,
but it really, to me, I know there's a lot of CGI involved in that change, but the fact that he's just like, hold my drink, and then jumps off a balcony with a cloak.
It was glorious.
It really felt like Clark running against the fence.
I was about to say, can we set that bar? Is that where you go? Do you go to the Clark running through the fence Superman moment?
Yeah. Superman.
Because I was going to the swing doors.
Or this one, but any of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll give you an even better one. Supergirl. The extended cut. There's a moment when the stunt devil flies into a pipe, and Helen Slater walks out the other side of the pipe dressed as.
Aye.
I like those moments. Like, what I don't like with the Marvel stuff now is that everything's become like nanotech.
That ties into the argument I've got of no, I don't like the Spider-Man we have now. But that's an entirely different argument.
Yeah.
That we'll have on a different.
But it's
occasion.
this thing of like the helmet comes off and it comes on whenever you want it to, and it's like, why are they taking their helmet off? You're only doing this for film service. It's not actually functioning the character. But also, it's like it's nanotech, right? So it doesn't feel real. It feels disconnected. But if you're a fucking wizard or a witch, those are 100% the moments where somebody can just do a thing with their hands and you're wearing a different outfit.
Yeah.
And I love that. But just him jumping off a like 40-story balcony, swinging the cloak, finishing a martini, and then going to do some New York business.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
So we talk about cameos, right?
Yeah.
It's a Sam Raimi movie, and everyone out there is going, well, if it's a Sam Raimi movie, there's going to be a certain person that must pop up somewhere. Obviously we're talking about His Majesty Bruce Campbell. If chins could kill.
Were you happy though? Did it make you really happy when you were like, oh, of course, this is a Sam Raimi movie, right?
Right. Of course. And also, so in the scene, obviously, the whole gag going on as he starts to hit himself, which is very reminiscent to Evil Dead. I was expecting, because he was a hot dog vendor, or was it a pizza balls vendor? Pizza. Oh, they looked great. But I was half expecting him to have his face stuck to a hot plate and he's trying to spatula himself off. I was expecting that to happen. It didn't go there, but it left you thinking he probably did, because he had burn marks on his face eventually, so he probably did. I'm sure he had burn marks. So I know appearance, cameo, it made sense. It was part of the story because, they're explaining, oh, see here, you don't need to pay for your food, whatever. Oh, yes, you do. This character turns up. It wasn't overkill. It was cute. The way it was intended to be done, it's like, oh, there he is. Yes, done. Move on.
Again, it's another thing that I wonder how much Sam had to say to people. I need Bruce to be in it.
Oh, that was on the document that he's pinned to the wall with a dagger.
The papyrus.
Yeah. The papyrus.
It goes Blackagar, Boltagon, and then Bruce Campbell.
Aye. And his chin was the next entry. Like, his chin
But
gets
I think
his own
it
trailer,
was,
if he wants it.
I know there was a lot of people, there's probably, there's clearly a demographic that are younger than us that will watch that movie and go, why is this a thing? You know what I mean? They're watching it going,
this?
Who the hell is this and why is this happening in my movie? And then the fact that it became a post-credits moment, did you stay for the post-credits? Of course.
Come on.
Of course. So the fact that he gets his comeuppance, he's been punching himself for 3 weeks and you get a little, what is it? Does he say groovy?
He didn't say groovy.
He says something though, right?
No, he says something like, it's finally over or something like that, or it's finished, or something like that, because he's now no longer punching himself
basically,
anymore.
it's kind of like if I had done a couple of movies, like if me and you had done a couple of movies together, and then you and I had done a couple of movies together, and then 10 years, 15 years later, I'd said, oh, Disney has asked me to come and do a movie for them, but I need to squeeze this guy into 30 seconds because this is what I do for my fans. I could see the studio going, do you really need to do that?
Well, no, because do you know
what I mean though? Like Bruce Campbell is famous to a very niche group of people.
Right, but if you're hiring Sam Raimi, you should know, like if you've done your research, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars worth of money here. They know exactly who they're getting in for whatever reason. You should then know that if you're getting Sam Raimi, there's a fucking good chance that Bruce Campbell's going to be involved somewhere.
Right. Here's a question. Would you have liked him to have a bigger part?
As long as,
or do you feel like he had to be you feel like he had to be a multiversal character?
No, yeah. As long as you're not changing the story just to shoehorn someone in. Right, so that's my sort of rules there. Well, no changing anything. So you'll just write the story and find a character for him to play.
It was tasteful. That's what we're saying, right? Like, we're both fans. We both love him. We love Sam. It was a tasteful, nice, like, if you know, you know. If you don't, it doesn't matter.
Exactly, that's it. That's exactly it. Example, Spider-Man by Sam Raimi as the referee in the match. He's not the referee. The ring announcer.
There's a really good fan theory. I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but I'm going to tell you about it right now because we're talking about Bruce. So, are you aware of Sam Raimi's plan? He did actually have a plan for Bruce Campbell in the Spider-Man movies.
I'm pretty sure I heard something about Bruce Campbell playing the part of Mysterio.
Right.
Mysterio? Is that right?
Bruce Campbell was going to play Mysterio in Spider-Man 4. You can look up storyboards. You can see that Bruce Campbell, there's a moment when Spider-Man like takes him into the police office and he's got the fishbowl on his head like Mysterio, and Spider-Man pulls the fishbowl off his head and it's Bruce. And the whole idea was like all of the characters that he played in the first 3 movies was one of Mysterio's illusions.
Ooh.
That's quite good, right?
That is quite good. And again, it makes sense. You talk about cameos in a movie. Well, if it's a cameo that's building to something, then okay. Is that still a cameo if it's building to something?
I think so, because I guess the point was, because Bruce, like, you know, let's be honest, Bruce is an older man at this point. He can do a movie, but he's not going to be like the main bad guy of a thing. But the idea of like starting Spider-Man 4 and Spider-Man is like hurtling Mysterio into the police office and you're like, who is Mysterio? And he takes the mask off and it's Bruce Campbell, and Bruce is like doing a ton of different accents and voices and is like, I was the guy that was in the theater and I was the guy that was in the wrestling ring and I've been following you for years, Spider-Man, like being dragged off. You'd be like, that's quite funny. I like that as a Bruce Campbell cameo.
I'm gonna move away from the mic. We'll meet again, Spider-Man! Right, so one character that we keep neglecting to mention is America.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Xochitl Gomez. I mean, if we've got any like South American viewers, I'm sure we're going to get some notes, but I believe it's Xochitl Gomez. Yeah. So like she's new. That's the first movie. How did you, like, overall, how did you feel about that character?
I thought the performer done well. Nothing against the performer. I thought the character was undercooked. It dips its toe in the pond. That's the second time I've used that line, but it dips the toe in the pond of a bit of background when they talk about, obviously, her parents, that type of thing. But I felt as if we got that. 2 mums. I felt as if we got that a wee bit too late. I would have liked to have had that moment maybe 20 minutes before.
It's just another thing that I don't like about that 838 universe. Like this whole, you know, when they're like walking down the street and they're like, oh, there's a little panel that you can step on and it's called Memory Lane. And if you step on the panel, like you can see that. I was like, Jesus, can we get Basil exposition in here?
Well, I was going to say
20 minutes.
Lazy exposition. Basil lazy.
Very, very lazy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm totally okay with you introducing like a South American multiversal traveler with a denim jacket on. I was like, I fucking love that. That is such a cool idea. It's like a Jack Burton for the multiverse. And I was like, if this woman is great, and I think she was great, but I agree with you that I just don't think they knew what to do with her.
I think, obviously, it's a main character. The whole story, as you said, is based around this character. Well, first of all, I wasn't sure, because this is the problem that you get watching these Marvel movies at this stage, where I wasn't sure, is she somebody from a TV show?
Had she turned up before?
Had she turned up before? So that's your level of geekdom becomes important here, i.e., I know a few things, not a lot, but I know a few things. There's people that know way more than me. So I'm getting into it going, is she somebody that I should know who that is? Is that somebody from the cartoons? Is it somebody for a comic book? Is it from a TV show? I don't know. So you need to do the audience that's watching your movie the service of give us something to care about this character. Give us a little bit more.
Like, the same as you know the Spider-Man animated show from the 90s, the X-Men animated show from the 90s. You've seen a couple of comic books in your time. I've got like a very restricted knowledge of like probably from when I was 0 years old to when I was 15 years old of comic books and this and that. But America Chavez, even to me, I had heard the name. I knew she was basically, I think the character in the comics is Miss America. And I knew she could travel the well, now you're thinking like Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel. Yeah, it all starts to sound a bit the same. But I think I could be wrong, But I think America Chavez only came into the comics in like 2010. It's quite recent. It's really new to have that character. So even when I saw that in the movies, I was like, okay, that's a very I'm out of my depth here. But do you know what? It's fine. I'll go with it if there's a purpose for it. My biggest problem with her character arc in that movie is that she unfortunately falls into a basket that we have seen quite a few times. You get to the end of the movie, Zombie Strange has his beautiful cloak of demons, and he flies over to the mountain, and him and Scarlet Witch are going to have a banter, and Wong, who we've also not talked about, by the way. What I'm saying is my biggest problem with the America Chavez thing is I was like, I love this character. I love that she's here. I love the denim jacket with the star on the back. This is brilliant.
It's a good look.
What I didn't like is that she spends the whole movie going, I can't control my powers.
Aye.
She's like, I can't control it. A bee stung my finger and my mum's got sucked into a portal and I've never seen them again. And I've spent my whole life just wandering from universe to universe. The fact that the end of the movie was Doctor Strange going, America, you just have to believe in yourself, love.
Aye. It was very 80s.
I was like, really?
Said Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah. I was like, is that what we're doing? You built this whole movie up. You've got this young woman, like, giving a shot to a weird new character that could be great.
Yeah.
And the way that you're going to explain that in a script writing sense is to go, just believe in yourself and it's fine.
Right. But
and literally within 30 seconds, she's just firing portals out everywhere.
Hold that thought.
Really?
Totally see what you're saying there. But if you look at it as a sort of balance, with the movie being so dark and so, see when I say obtuse, with its direction, it's not from A to Z, it goes all over the place. Does a cheesy ending maybe just suit that nicely? Does that make sense? Like a cheesy finish to the madness is maybe what it needed?
By the time we'd got to that point, the fact that we had Benedict Cumberbatch in a full, like, zombie prosthetic outfit, and he was overacting the shit out of that, by the way. The fact that he's that. Like, have to be what I liked it too. That. I was like,
I liked
yeah,
it.
You know what? I'm at the end of the movie and I'm now going, I've accepted this. I know.
Well, you need to accept it. It's a fucking zombie. It's a zombie. It's a zombie that's been resurrected. It's a corpse that's been resurrected.
I think Elizabeth Olsen going into her other self and seeing the kids and the other Wanda sort of being like, don't worry, I'll look after them for you. I loved that. I thought, this is really, really good. The America Chavez thing, which is what we were talking about, is undercooked. Like, I like having the character in there. I was open to it. And they were so close. They were maybe like 5 steps away from getting it bang on.
It needed
Here's a question
more.
I want to ask you, though. Let me ask you this. Do you think Wanda's still alive?
Yes.
Why?
Just because.
How's
that for well, I want it to be true because I wonder it to be true. But it also ties into, to finish off your thing about America Chavez, where we've spent most of this discussion not talking about America Chavez. Why? Because there was nothing really there. She was a main part of the story, but just because she's a main part doesn't mean she's an enjoyable part. Whereas a lot of her conversation has been involving Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, that's why we left her to the end. Like, I still think Xochitl Gomez deserves a mention because she's a young actor in a big fucking... She's a small fish in a very big fucking pond at this point. And I'm like, yeah, you deserve it. And I know you want to talk about that as well, but we will still stand there and go, I would have used her better than that. I just would have.
Absolutely.
If it was me and you directing it, we'd have made an effort to try and make America Chavez more important than she was.
Something more than that. And that's why I said the very first thing that I said was the performer did well. Like what she had to do. I've got nothing against that performance at all. No, it's fine.
Like, if we're going to wrap this up, I guess how you wrap it up is you go, okay, the ending is good. Yeah, they had a magic fight. We didn't talk about the magic fight with the musical notes.
There was lots of magic. There was lots of magic.
There was lots of magic.
There's a
final cameo that nobody spoke about yet. And it's actually one of the cameos that annoyed me most of all.
I was confused. At first, I went, is that? And it was, obviously, Charlize, right?
Yep.
So, I'm a fan, but I had no idea who the character was. No idea. And again, I'm sitting there going, is it somebody that I should know about? Is it somebody for a TV show? Is this common knowledge? I felt, am I being silly? Do you know, who was that?
So there was a character in Doctor Strange called Dormammu. Do you remember that?
I do.
It's the big
Dormammu
face.
is also somebody, aye. That's something from something else.
Benedict Cumberbatch actually did the performance. He's the voice and the face of Dormammu. Did you know?
Dormammu, not Dormammu.
Dormammu. And Clea is the daughter of Dormammu, and that's who Charlize Theron is playing.
Ah, is her second name Patra?
Cleopatra?
But
Charlize is a real
we're happy.
spanner in the works.
Right, but if that character, it could have been somebody else. So at least we're happy that it's Charlize Theron.
It's like, I'm no though. That's my problem. I think if the character had turned up and I went, wow, that's interesting. The fact that it's Charlize is what's making me go, oh, fuck. Maybe we're in a weird place now. This is when I just think all the post-credit scenes were fucking weird. Like, he's got a third eye. Okay, fuck it.
The third eye thing, meh. Aye, that didn't...
None of it actually felt like it had any weight. And I was like, if there was any movie that was going to have a... Do you know what I would rather? See this in your head, right? Wanda dies in the third act, right? If you just had a post-credit scene where the camera, it goes from black to a camera shot, and it's panning over some rubble, right? And you're just like,
Barney?
What's the rubble? Barney rubble, right? And it's panning over it, and it gets to a point, and it looks up a little bit, and you just see that mural of like the Scarlet Witch with the hair, you know, like the Medusa thing that we were talking about
at
earlier.
the temple.
And as it pans to it, a hand comes out the rubble, like in Sam Raimi fashion. It just goes.
I was going to say classic Sam. Cut to black. Yep.
Don't you think that would have been better?
Well, if you're going to finish off a Sam Raimi movie that smacks of Sam Raimi-ness, and I mean that in a loving way, do you know what I mean? To finish things off, then absolutely, it should have ended, or it's the floating camera.
That would have been really good if you'd done that over the rubble,
right?
To a hand coming out like the mummy. That would have been really good. My final question will be this. Did you think it was weird that you didn't have Vision in it at all?
Well, he's dead, is he not?
But we're in a multiverse, aren't we?
I know, but for fuck's sake, man. He's a walnut.
And he's married to Jennifer Connelly.
Jennifer Connelly?
Indeed, with the eyebrows.
Wow. Some good eyebrows.
Russell.
She does well. Russell, did you know that she has eyebrows? So let's wrap this bad boy up.
Yep.
This has been the most ridiculous podcast ever as an entry. A first entry into hopefully what will become a regular thing. Yeah. Say goodbye, Kevin.
Goodbye, Kevin.